We are coming on the air as you may already be in the air or on the road now, with millions of Americans heading to the airport or hitting the highway for the 4th of July weekend. Just ahead, how a surge of travelers and higher gas prices and food prices, for that matter, are impacting your holiday. Plus, we lay out what went down inside a Russian courtroom on day one of WNBA superstar Brittney Griner's trial. What we're hearing from Griner's wife as the Kremlin denies her detention is politically motivated. And a seismic shift in the college sports world, with two of the NCAA's most storied programs switching conferences. Why UCLA and USC are seeing sunnier days in the Midwest. Plus, a rabbi in Florida suing that state, saying its efforts to restrict abortion interferes with religious freedom. Why some Jews hope they can reopen access for all Americans. And in tonight's original, we break down how some Gen Z supporters of abortion rights are towing a legal line by posting the private information of conservative Supreme Court justices on TikTok. More on this doxing trend later in the show. Good Friday, everybody. I'm Aaron, in for Hallie today. And if you're watching this show right now, I'm hoping you're not somewhere stuck in traffic watching on your phone or something. We are right in the thick of what experts say is the worst time to travel for the 4th of July holiday weekend, with a headache piling up from highways to airports everywhere right now. AAA says nearly 48 million travelers will go more than 50 miles this weekend. That's nearly hitting a so-called back to normal, those numbers from 2019. Well, the vast majority of you will be heading out by car. 88% of travelers. That's a new record, too, 42 million. Now, listen, gas prices are off those record highs we've been talking about, but they are close, still a very high $4.84. Last July 4th, they were averaging $3.12. Prices also bumped up if you are one of the 3.5 million traveling by plane. The lowest average price now is $201, about 14% more than last year. And you know what? You're lucky if you even get to take off, actually. More than 2,500 flights have gotten axed globally today, with 21,000 delays. The TSA says more people flew on Sunday than any other day this year, and it expects to screen more than 2 million folks every day this summer. Now, we've got Ron Allen in New Jersey, Tom Costello in Maryland tonight. Bill Cairns tracking the forecast for us as well. Let's go to Tom Costello first in Potomac, Maryland. Tom, I know there's a lot of traffic behind you on the road right now. That's not the only thing on the ground at this moment, though, right? A bunch of flights are delayed,
Well, I got to tell you. Yeah, that's right, Aaron. So we are watching significant weather here move into the mid-Atlantic, but the real headline that's just broken in the last few minutes does, in fact, concern what's happening in the nation's airspace, specifically the East Coast. We've now got ground stops at critical airports up and down the East Coast, and I'm looking at it right now on my laptop. Starting out in Orlando in the south, ground stops because of severe thunderstorms. You work your way up to Atlanta. It looks like Atlanta has now cleared, but they may have residual delays because of ground stops. We've also got them at Reagan National Airport in Washington, D.C. Looks like also at Dulles, also at BWI outside of Baltimore and Philadelphia. Continue working your way up the coast. We've got Newark, it looks like, and LaGuardia, all because of weather moving up the East Coast. There's also one ground stop delay out in Las Vegas and some weather in Denver. Listen, this is not at all what they were hoping for today, because this is a critical day, as you mentioned, right? 2 million plus passengers flying today alone. We've already seen many, many cancellations system-wide. About 4,000 cancellations just since the morning of Sunday all the way through today. So now that's just going to aggravate the situation. Not enough pilots to handle the schedules. They were really on a razor's edge here, hoping they could fly these schedules with full planes, get everybody to and from where they need to go with the clock ticking. Boy, it looks like they're in trouble right now because of these ground stops. This will ripple, as you know how these things go. This isn't solved in a matter of 30 minutes or an hour. They have to wait for the thunderstorms to move through, but then they've got the residual backup, and that starts to cascade through the system, and this could cause real problems through the day. And we'll see what happens over the weekend. But at the moment, that's the headlines. Critical airports up and down the East Coast in a ground stop right now, Aaron.
Yeah, you know, I have some friends and family who are traveling today, and I've gotten text messages that I couldn't say what they said in those messages on TV. I'm curious to know, Tom, though, what you've been hearing from folks about air travel and trying to get through the mess that is the air travel universe right now.
Well, you know, the funny thing is we were at the airports earlier today, and things were going pretty well. But then the afternoon, you know, summer thunderstorms start rolling through, and it always starts percolating right there in Florida and works its way up through Atlanta and then all the way. By the way, Atlanta, the world's busiest airport. If things go bad there, they're going to snowball and get worse up and down the East Coast. For the most part today, people were optimistic, but now it's looking pretty troublesome for them.
All right, Tom Costello for us in Maryland tonight. Tom, thank you. Let's turn to Ron Allen now. He's at a service plaza on I-95 in Secaucus, New Jersey. Ron, you know, the biggest complaint that we're hearing from folks has been about gas prices as of late. Still the case here?
Yeah, and the bigger complaint is about air travel as well. That's why so many people are driving. That's one reason. There's going to be, the expectations are a record number of people driving this holiday season than ever before as we emerge out of COVID. That's another factor in all this. People are tired of being homebound, and worries about COVID are less now, so people are trying to get out. But yeah, gas prices are, what, $4.84 a gallon nationally on average. Here they're about a little higher, $4.97. But people have gotten, dare I say, used to it because it's been that way now for several months. They've gone down a little bit, but not significantly. But still, people want to get out. Here's what some motorists have been saying about their plans and how they're dealing with these high gas prices. They're getting on with it. Take a listen.
I think the gas prices are really high. It didn't really change our plans.
I think if I was commuting every day, I don't think I'd be making trips like this.
Still painful because that's my main business expense every day.
And the prices are down, I think it's about a dime or so over the past week or so, a penny overnight, so everything counts. So they're moving in the right direction, but still, behind me, what you see, gridlock here on the New Jersey Turnpike, it's been that way since about noon, and it's not easing up, and it's only going to get worse as the day goes on. This is, of course, the worst time to be out on the road, the middle of the day until about nightfall, and then things may ease up, and we'll see what Saturday and Sunday and Monday, Tuesday bring.
Yeah, you mentioned the pandemic, right? It sounds like most of the folks you're hearing from are not really worried about the pandemic anymore. They're getting together.
Yeah, that's very true. I think that's true in all aspects of life, and certainly over this holiday weekend. People are still thinking about it, hopefully, but they're not as worried about it. They're not canceling plans. We talked to a few folks about COVID. Here's some of what they had to say about that. Take a listen.
This is first since the COVID. It's first time, you know, I feel like I want to get out. My wife wants to get out. We've been in the house. We're seniors. Yeah. So if we get a chance to get out, with the car working, we going.
The other thing that's happening, the wind is kicking up here just in the last few minutes, just like Tom was talking about earlier. We're getting some of that, some turbulence in the sky, some wind kicking up, some weather rolling this way. That may affect things on the ground as well. So, you know that old saying, pack your patience. That are so more true than ever.
Yeah.
Aaron?
All right, Ron, we hope you guys have found a nice restaurant in New Jersey where you can wait for the traffic to die down before you head back over. Ron Allen for us on the Turnpike. Thanks. Let's get to that all-important forecast now. Meteorologist Bill Cairns is joining us. Bill, looks like we are already seeing some significant weather impacting travel, particularly on the East Coast here. Walk us through what's happening, how long the stuff is going to last.
Yeah, the main concern is these thunderstorms that are rolling through the D.C. area. Most of them are now heading from the mountains of West Virginia and Virginia on the border there, and they're trying to slide their way towards the I-95 corridor. Some are going to make it, some will dissipate, but this area is under a severe thunderstorm watch until 7 o'clock this evening. So, of course, if we get those storms heading into Reagan International and then Dulles, we could get some airport delays out of this. We've already had a few storms there between Baltimore and Philadelphia. Those have dissipated on their way to Philly. So that's one concern. The other concern all day long has been torrential downpours along the Gulf Coast, especially around Port Arthur, Beaumont, Lake Charles area. Port Arthur had 5 inches of rain today. Flash flood warning has been lifted, though, so hopefully the water is starting to collect and head where it's supposed to be and not on the roads anymore. So anyone traveling I-10, that's probably the worst drive out there from Port Arthur over towards Lake Charles, Lafayette, Baton Rouge, and New Orleans. Still numerous downpours, but it is improving. And for anyone, a big heads up for tomorrow. We have one round of the line of storms tonight in the D.C. area. Tomorrow, it should be more organized, and it could be a little stronger, too. We have 50 million people at risk of severe weather tomorrow. So if you have airport plans, especially during the afternoon tomorrow around New York City to Boston, I think late afternoon, Philly and D.C., again, we could have some airport stoppages when those thunderstorms are around. Again, it's only going to last about an hour, but, you know, that's a ripple effect of flights landing and flights taking off. Here's the timing of everything. There's 7 p.m. this evening. Storms around D.C. We get a little break overnight. Then the storms will fire up again tomorrow afternoon, especially D.C., Philly, and around New York City. So as far as the forecast goes, again, Saturday, severe risk in the northeast mid-Atlantic. We're going to see numerous pop-up storms in the south. You kind of expect that. We get that. So that's kind of what you know is going to happen, Aaron.
So, Bill, real quick, I think one of the big questions is obviously for the 4th of July, right? Folks want to know if they're going to be able to see fireworks at night. What do you think?
It's as though in the south, you know, it's amazing because all day long it's hot, it's humid, then the thunderstorms come, and you're just crossing your fingers that the rain and the storms will end as the sun is setting. And I think that's going to be the case. You know, a lot of people in Florida will have to go through that whole progression, but I do think you will get it in. The best chances of getting any significant rains would be areas like Minneapolis, Chicago, Detroit. But again, it's only going to last a half hour, so maybe you get delayed, but then they should go off and be just fine. And worst case scenario, you can always watch them on NBC. The Macy's 4th of July Spectacular looks fantastic in New York City. The temperature should be warm, light breeze. That's perfect. It just kind of drifts the smoke out of the way after they explode. It should be a really nice show.
All right, we can look forward to that. Meteorologist Bill Cairns. Bill, we appreciate it. Thank you. WNBA star Brittney Griner's trial started today. She was formally charged with intentionally bringing narcotics into Russia. This is 4 months after officials there say they found cannabis oil in her luggage. Now, here, Griner was entering court earlier in Moscow. She told Reuters that she was finding detention hard because she doesn't speak Russian, but also because she can't work out anymore. If convicted, Griner, a U.S. citizen, could be looking at 10 years in prison. Now, the U.S. says she's being detained wrongfully, and today, Russia's denying that Griner's detention is politically motivated, saying she's being held because she was carrying illegal drugs. And the stakes are pretty high here. According to the State Department, the Russian court system's acquittal rate is less than 1%. Megan Fitzgerald here with me now to talk a little bit more about this. So, Megan, we've seen Griner only a few times during these court appearances she's had. Lay out what went down in court today.
Well, Aaron, as you said, we saw Brittney Griner one of the few times we've actually seen her over the course of these 4 months plus. She walked in. She had handcuffs on. We understand that she was accompanied by officials from the U.S. Embassy. And she was formally read her charges during this 2.5-hour trial proceeding in court today. And then we understand that she did not enter a plea, but she did acknowledge the charges that are brought against her. And then there were 2 witnesses that testified against her. We understand that these were airport officials, and as you mentioned, it was February of 17th when Brittney Griner was going through security at airport, and officials there say that they found those cartridges, those vape cartridges filled with hashish oil. And then, of course, she's been detained ever since. Now, we've been speaking with experts who say, look, this is a sham. You know, this is a show put on by the Russian government, and that, as you mentioned, Aaron, less than 1% receive acquittals. And if they do, those acquittals can be overturned. And so all likelihood here is that Brittney Griner will be convicted and that she will be sentenced to up to 10 years in prison, which is why it's so important what the State Department is doing in secrecy to try and secure her release, Aaron.
And I want to talk a little bit more about what's being done outside of Russia. But first, we did hear from Brittney Griner's wife. She spoke on CNN last night. I want to play a little bit of what she had to say.
Do you think she's being used as a political pawn by Russia?
Honestly, all of this stuff is so new to me. But then I realized, like, the answer to that question is yes.
So, you know, experts in Russian law say that diplomacy, Megan, is the best bet for Brittney to be released here. There's been a lot of pressure from celebrities, from politicians, sports stars. Do we know what the U.S.'s next move is here?
You know, Aaron, it's hard to speculate. We actually don't know the answer to that. But what we have seen in the past, actually just a couple of weeks ago, is when Trevor Reed was released. We know that there was a prison swap that happened there. There have been reports, specifically from Russian state media, TASS, saying that there would be a prison swap in return for Brittney Griner. The U.S. State Department has been very tight-lipped about that. They've not been speaking about that. They've been asked directly and have not confirmed that. But then, of course, the Kremlin has been silent as well. And we heard in that interview yesterday with CNN from Brittney Griner's wife, Sherelle, who basically said, look, if a prison swap is necessary to be able to secure the release of her wife, of Brittney Griner, then that's something that she wants the U.S. government to do right away. And this is why she continues to press for a meeting with President Biden. Aaron?
All right, a lot of people paying attention to this, and we will be for the duration of this trial and whatever the outcome may be ultimately. Megan Fitzgerald tracking this story out of Russia for us. Megan, thank you. President Biden holding a virtual meeting with 9 Democratic governors today. They talked about ways to protect abortion access in their states. The governors you see on the screen here have already moved to protect women's reproductive health after the Supreme Court overturned Roe. But the president is now facing criticism from some Democrats after Democratic Congressman John Yarmuth said President Biden plans to nominate an anti-abortion rights Republican, Chad Meredith, to a lifetime appointment on the federal bench in Kentucky, Mitch McConnell's home state. NBC News has not independently confirmed that Biden plans to nominate Meredith. Now, this all comes one day after Biden said he supports an exception to the Senate's rules on the filibuster to codify Roe and privacy rights. Joining me now is Josh Letterman in Washington. Josh, I want to start with this governor's meeting today. These are governors from states that are already going to protect abortion rights and access. So why not include other governors who are maybe on the fence about this, or governors that have already put these bans in place?
Well, there's probably not much to talk about, Aaron. And to be honest, I don't think that most of those Republican governors would have gone to a meeting with Trump about abortion rights, given that they could not have more different views at this point in time. So you're absolutely right. Biden today is preaching to the choir, talking to these Democratic governors that are already doing what he wants them to do, which is to move quickly to shore up abortion protections in their state. But the broader point that the White House hopes to make with this meeting today, and by allowing cameras in for part of it, is to signal that this battle is really shifting from the federal government to the states. Now that the Supreme Court has said there's no constitutional nationwide right to abortion, it is now incumbent upon people in individual states, according to White House officials, to do everything they can to protect those rights at the state level. Biden hoping to give some fresh momentum to that effort today.
Josh, we also heard the president today acknowledging that there aren't really enough votes to change the Senate rules on the filibuster, even though yesterday he said he would support something like that. Instead, he seemed to reiterate a call for voters to really take action to elect candidates who would codify Roe, right?
That's right, Aaron. And President Biden didn't mention them by name, but we know exactly who he was alluding to, Senators Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, when he said Democrats don't have the votes right now to sidestep the filibuster and pass a nationwide right to abortion. That's because those two Democrats, they support legalizing abortion nationwide. They don't support doing it by sidestepping the filibuster. President Biden indicating he has no problem going straight around them by trying to pass it anyway, but he would need more Democrats in the Senate to do it. Here's what he had to say.
I predict if we don't take this, keep the Senate, increase it in the House, we're going to be in a situation where the Republicans are going to pass a nationwide prohibition consistent with what the Supreme Court ruled.
The reality, though, is, Aaron, not only would Democrats have to pick up 2 Senate seats in the midterms, which is no guaranteed win, they also would have to control the House after November. And that also is in question, given the possibility, or a lot of political analysts would say, the likelihood that Democrats will lose a significant number of seats in the midterms.
You know, Josh, we also heard from this congressman from Kentucky. What more can you tell us about what NBC has been able to learn from Congressman Yarmuth about the potential nomination of Chad Meredith in that state?
Yeah, this has been a confusing story over the last day, but the Courier-Journal newspaper in Kentucky reported that Congressman Yarmuth, a Democrat, told them that he'd learned from the White House that Biden plans to nominate this anti-abortion rights Republican lawyer to a lifetime appointment on the federal court. We actually spoke with Yarmuth today, and he said not only is that true, but he believes that it's part of a deal that he believes Biden struck with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who is, of course, from that state. But the White House, Aaron, they say that all of this is premature because nobody has been nominated as of now.
All right, Josh Letterman for us today on the North Lawn of the White House. Josh, thank you. Some other news coming out of D.C. we want to tell you about. The White House announcing today that President Biden will give the Presidential Medal of Freedom to 17 people next week, and there are some pretty big names on the list, too. Simone Biles, former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords, Kazir Khan, Megan Rapinoe, Denzel Washington, all set to get the country's highest civilian honor. Now, Biden will also award the medal posthumously to Steve Jobs and to Senator John McCain. The White House saying that these recipients, quote, embody the soul of the nation through their hard work, overcoming of obstacles, and dedication to advocacy. Confusion and anxiety across schools in Florida tonight and in the coming weeks. The state's parental rights in education law, or what critics call Don't Say Gay law, officially went into effect today. Now, this is a topic you've probably heard this show cover a lot in the last few months. You may remember we saw months of heated protests in Florida on this issue, a federal lawsuit, and even a feud between the governor and the Walt Disney Company. Now, the idea of LGBTQ issues at school has been at the center of controversy and debate for a while now. Sam Brock is in Miami reporting on what we know so far.
One of the most polarizing pieces of legislation in Florida in recent memory takes effect today, as many schools across the state right now are trying to figure out how does this affect them. We do know this. The state of Florida says instruction will definitely be limited for kindergarten to third graders, like at the elementary school behind me, when it comes to topics related to sexual orientation and gender identity. But the state admits right now they have no blueprint for how to address this kind of material and content when it comes to older kids. They say have about a year to figure that question out, but it's one of the factors driving uncertainty and fear around this law, which critics call Don't Say Gay. Now, in terms of a lawsuit that is proceeding right now against the state of Florida, Florida responded with a motion this week trying to dispel misconceptions, it says, about what the law does and does not do. It says what it does is restrict instruction on those subject matters. What it does not do, according to the state, is prevent teachers who are gay or transgender from posting pictures of their family, talking about their spouses or even their children, or answering questions from students about their families. All of that right now, though, does appear to be open to interpretation as we hear different stories from different schools. There has been uproar in the state of Florida as protests have broken out at schools all over the state in the months after Governor DeSantis signed this into law back in March. Where do we stand here? We know there's been a high-profile feud with DeSantis and Disney, with Disney voicing its opposition to Don't Say Gay and losing its special status in Florida. That legal battle continues, and I spoke with a teacher here at Pembroke Pines Elementary in Broward County. She told me that she is gay and that she has lived for 34 years watching the evolution of civil rights, that when she was a student here, people couldn't talk about their sexual orientation, but it feels like there's been so much progress made, and yet now civil rights, she says, is moving backwards. And it's not just Florida, because there are 6 other states that have passed similar laws, with 33 others that have introduced legislation within the last couple of years. In Pembroke Pines, Sam Brock, NBC News.
New York State Senate passing new gun restrictions today, banning firearms in a lot of public places, including Times Square. They also passed tougher permitting requirements, too. The State Assembly still needs to sign off on it before it goes to Governor Kathy Hochul. Now, this move comes in response to the Supreme Court ruling making it easier for New Yorkers to carry handguns in public. Also today, a new report from the National Fraternal Order of Police. It says police shootings are up this year. 178 officers shot so far in 2022, compared to 150 at the same time last year. We turn to the markets now, really rallying tonight after having just closed out the worst first-half performance in more than half a century. The Dow and the S&P 500 both up more than 1% to end the first day of the second half, and the Nasdaq also up by 0.9%. We know the big issue here that's causing a lot of those losses in the first half, inflation, right? And with the Fed trying to fight off that inflation by hiking interest rates, economists are worried about heading into a recession. Those fears reinforced today when a Federal Reserve tracker eyeing economic growth pointed to an increased chance that the U.S. economy has already gone into recession. And that's not to mention all the other factors that are complicating just about everything right now. We know COVID, lockdowns in China, global supply chain issues, and the war in Ukraine, of course, that's still happening. CNBC's Kate Rogers joining me now to break it all down for us. Kate, this massive single-day swings that we've been seeing really reflecting how nervous investors are getting about how things are going right now. Talk to us about the scale of what's going down in the past 6 months.
Hey, Aaron, good to be here. Well, it's certainly been a rough first half of the year. We did see a bounce-back rally, as you mentioned today, but all of the major averages still posted their fourth down week in the last 5. And for the first half, the Dow fell about 15%, the S&P fell over 20%, the Nasdaq fell nearly 30%. But if you look at the S&P in isolation, it's even worse historically, with its worst half since 1970. And so much of that comes down to things you just mentioned: inflation, the Federal Reserve's rate hikes, and then broader geopolitical factors like the war in Ukraine, those continued lockdowns in China over COVID-19, high gas prices, and more. Analysts are kind of mixed on where we'll wind up going from here in the market. Some telling CNBC we can fall even further. Others are optimistic for a bounce back in the second half of the year. But a lot depends on how the Fed continues to tackle inflation and how aggressive it remains with those ongoing rate hikes.
Yeah, I think we all want to see improvements. We want to see fast improvements, right, to see if the Fed's efforts are really working. And now we've got this data from the Atlanta Fed. Talk to us about those numbers. What does that tell us about where we are?
Yeah, so this is a Fed tracker of economic growth, and it's showing an increased chance that we've already now entered a recession. More economists are looking at an increased chance that there's negative growth in the months ahead. And the Atlanta Fed's GDP now measure sees Q2 output contracting by 2.1%. And if you couple that number with what we saw in Q1, it's in the window for a recession right now. So Fed officials have said that they are optimistic that they can get inflation under control without getting into a recession, kind of a soft landing as they call it. But more recently, Fed Chair Jerome Powell said that getting inflation down is the top priority right now. So you have to imagine that that does mean, continued aggression as they move ahead.
And that aggression looks like the rate hike that we've been seeing so far a couple of times this year. We do expect another, 75 basis point rate hike this month. Are you seeing any sort of hopeful signs of recovery, Kate?
Yeah, so if you look to history kind of as a guide here, the S&P fell about 21% in the first half of 1970. Then it rebounded to gain more than 26% in the second half. So now we have to kind of see what the second half brings. But longer term issues that I mentioned, like inflation and those Fed rate hikes, they're not going away. Recession talk is on the rise. The Fed's kind of working to play catch up to control inflation. So some say if the Fed softens its stance on those aggressive hikes, we could see a rebound. But rebounds like this are possible. We kind of have to wait and see what action they take and then how the market reacts from there, Aaron.
All right, we know you'll be doing it for us. Kate Rogers at CNBC out in San Francisco. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
Coming up, a strange thing happened on Netflix early this morning. Why some people think it may have crashed. Plus, another person at Yellowstone gored by a bison. Park officials warning the visitors when we come back. Stay with us. Two iconic names in college sports, UCLA and the University of Southern California. They're leaving their conference, the Pac-12, to head to the Big Ten. The Los Angeles rivals leaving after nearly 100 years in the conference. This is set to happen at the start of the 2024-25 season. Now, this will put them in a conference that includes the heavyweights like Michigan, Ohio State, Wisconsin. It also takes UCLA and USC away from their traditional rivals on the West Coast. The closest school to them now is going to be Nebraska. That's more than 1,500 miles from L.A. In a statement, the Pac-12 saying it's extremely surprised and disappointed by the decision, but went on to say they're confident that the conference will continue to thrive and grow into the future. They also say they're going to try to expand, too. I want to bring in Nicole Auerbach now. She is a senior writer for The Athletic. Nicole, UCLA is talking about how this is going to boost resources from academic support to mental health and wellness. At the end of the day, though, this is all about money, right?
It's absolutely all about money. I've had different people do projections for me. This is before USC and UCLA were set to join the Big Ten. And there were estimates that the Big Ten schools were going to bring in about $40 million more per year than Pac-12 schools by the end of the decade. I mean, there is a growing separation between the Big Ten and the SEC and the schools in those leagues and everybody else. And USC and UCLA realized that and didn't want to be left behind.
So, look, this is about more than just football, though, right? Traveling for the football team is not going to be that hard, probably, but because, it's mostly on Saturdays, that sort of thing. But what's going to happen to these non-revenue sports that these big schools have? Will a soccer player have to go all the way from L.A. to Penn State now on a Tuesday night and still be expected to keep up with classes?
Yeah, it definitely becomes a little bit of a harder sell for the term student athlete when you make decisions like this and you really go coast to coast from Pacific to Atlantic. Rutgers to UCLA is almost 3,000 miles. I mean, this is significant, and it's really significant for the athletes in those sports at USC and UCLA because they're the ones who are going to have to make so many cross-country trips. I think the thinking behind all of this is that there is going to be enough money coming in that it can go towards chartering and making sure that there are better travel opportunities for these athletes. But again, it just increases this push and this move towards the professionalization of college sports.
At the same time, this move is not even a year after a similar seismic shift in college sports, Texas and Oklahoma leaving the Big 12 to go to the SEC. So big picture here, what's the future of college sports and how worried are other schools and conferences about these sorts of movements?
Well, everyone is very nervous in a lot of places in the country, just like they were at this time last year or 11 months ago after Texas and Oklahoma jumped, because no one wants to be the last one on a sinking ship or in a conference that is dissolving or falling apart, or the best, flagship programs are getting poached. And that's what's happening right now. There's a lot of nerves and anxiety in the ACC. People are looking at Notre Dame, wondering if this is the time that they're going to finally join a conference. And if that is going to be the Big Ten, what would that mean? I mean, I think where we're headed are the SEC and the Big Ten continuing to add this idea of super conferences, maybe getting up to 20 members or more, and just increased stratification. If all the money and the resources and the media deals go to those two conferences, there would be a huge gap between them and everyone else. So you have that idea of super conferences, more of a professionalized model in college sports. And then what happens to everyone else? What happens to the other sports, the Olympic sports, the Olympic model? There's so many questions that need to be answered, but it does feel like we are shifting towards a world where the SEC and the Big Ten run everything, and then there's a huge drop-off.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to watch and see how it all shakes out in the end, hopefully as a win for these students who are students and athletes. Nicole Auerbach, we appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's get you over to the 5 things now our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, today the Department of Defense announced more than $820 million more dollars in military aid for Ukraine. That aid includes a rocket system and ammunition. The Biden administration has committed nearly $7 billion to Ukraine since Russia's invasion. Number 2, 15 former or current black Tesla employees have filed a lawsuit against the company. They say they were subjected to racial abuse and harassment at Tesla's factories. Tesla is facing at least 10 lawsuits alleging racial discrimination or sexual harassment. The company has not yet responded to a request for comment. Number 3, another bison attack at Yellowstone National Park, the second in just a few days now. Park officials say a 71-year-old woman and her daughter inadvertently approached the animal when they were going back to their car. Then it charged at her. She's doing okay. Her injuries were not too serious, apparently. Park rangers are also warning visitors to give bison and all the other wildlife plenty of space. Number 4, thousands of Stranger Things fans reported problems with Netflix early this morning around the same time this season's final episodes came out. Looks like the situation got fixed pretty quickly, though. Stranger Things 4 has already set the record as the top English language series on the streamer. And number 5, an 86-year-old American Airlines flight attendant is celebrating a big milestone, so big that the Guinness Book of World Records is recognizing her for this. Betty Nash has been working for the airline for 65 years. That makes her the longest-serving and oldest flight attendant in the world. She became a stewardess back when it was okay to use that word, not anymore. That was in 1957. That was back when tickets cost about $12. How about that? But when we come back, your July 4th barbecue will probably be a little more expensive this weekend. What one state is doing to help cut down on costs. Stay with us. The CDC says at least one person is dead and almost a dozen others are sick because of a listeria outbreak. People who got sick come from 10 different states, but most of them have ties to one state in particular. That's coming up in the local. First, though, as 42 million people hit the road for the 4th of July holiday, high gas prices are not the only big expense this year to keep on your radar. Food prices, because of inflation, are going to make your grocery bill for the 4th of July cookout a bit more expensive than in recent years. The American Farm Bureau Federation estimates a cookout for 10 people this year is going to cost you about $10 more on average compared to 2020 and 2021. The state of Illinois is doing something about that, though. It is suspending that 1% grocery tax today. We're going to do that for 1 year there to help folks save on food costs. The state saying it'll save taxpayers up to $400 million in the next year. Illinois is also delaying a gas tax hike that was to start today through next January. Joining me now is Maggie Vespa in Chicago. Maggie, let's talk a little bit about the grocery tax drop in Illinois first. How much would consumers actually save, and how are shoppers sort of reacting and responding to this?
Sure. So you hit the nail on the head. That 1% savings is what we're looking at with the grocery tax. So you take an example, for instance, like someone who spends an even $100 on their grocery bill, and they, with this tax waived, would save $1 on that grocery bill. This is going to last for a year. Obviously, people here in Chicago telling us that it's good to have any relief, but when they hear it's just a 1% reduction, they got some mixed reviews. Take a listen.
It's a nice gesture, but I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. It didn't seem to make that much of a difference in my bill today.
I appreciated it. We appreciate all the help we can get.
For right now, it's going to work, but I know eventually it's going to go right back up.
You heard that man saying it's going to go right back up. And again, Aaron, this starts today. It's going to last 1 year. People wish they had more relief, but telling us, I mean, they'll take what they can get, Aaron.
Yeah, I think we're all kind of in that boat with the way prices are right now. I want to talk a little bit about cookout costs, right? We're going into this holiday weekend. Those costs are up about 17% this year. We'll put some of the things up on the screen that we think are things that people buy this time of year, the popular stuff that's out there. What can people do this year to sort of help offset the rise in prices and try to still check off everything on their list?
Yeah, for sure. So we wanted to kind of have an experiment ourselves. So you can see we have this shopping cart here, a lovely, some prop action, if you will, of 4th of July goodies and just kind of the standards that you have. I think we have our shopping list that we actually went into Jewel Osco and got. You can see we have the hot dog buns, obviously the hot dogs with them, a full watermelon because we were feeling intense about it, and just everything that you would have at your barbecue. And, you know, our producer was really, really smart about it, though, buying everything she could that was on sale. There were a lot of sales going on inside Jewel Osco with the holiday. And then you also, of course, have those couponing apps. One literally called the Coupons app. Jewel Osco, for instance, a lot of stores have their own apps, Coupon Sherpa, things like that. So experts really recommend honing in on those. And I will note, by the way, it's a really good idea if especially you have a crew who, after hours of staring at the food, they break into the cookies. Aaron, they break into the cookies. I mean, the seal is broken. Like, the jig is up. We couldn't even just wait like a full day. But honestly, it's valid. We're too psyched about the 4th and about the cookout. So you had to give them something, and they were good.
And listen, we know how hard these crews work out in the sun with you all day long with all the gear and the setup. Let them have the cookies, the chips, whatever they want. But don't eat the potato salad. That needs to go in the trash. You've been doing those live shots all day.
No,
you can't
that's
eat
dangerous at this point. It is very dangerous.
All right. Maggie Vespa for us in Chicago. Maggie, thank you. Coming up, a deadly crash in California sending this boat spinning out of control. What officials are saying about what went wrong here. Plus, a synagogue in Florida suing the state over its 15-week abortion ban. How it's using religious grounds to try to protect abortion rights. We'll be right back. NBC covers hundreds of stories each day, and because you couldn't possibly read, watch, or listen to all of them, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what we do here. We're calling this a look around the regions of the country in a segment we like to call The Local. From our West Coast Bureau, one person has died in a boat crash in San Francisco Bay. The Coast Guard says a motorboat and a sailboat collided there. That crash leaving the motorboat doing donuts in the water. Witnesses tried to save the person who got ejected from that boat, but the driver died at the scene. From our Southeast Bureau, the CDC says a new listeria outbreak that's led to the death of one person has links to Florida. Officials don't know the exact source of the outbreak just yet. 22 people have been put in the hospital. People who've gotten sick live in 10 states, but the CDC says a majority of them live in or have traveled to Florida recently. Symptoms usually start within 2 weeks after someone eats contaminated food. From our Northeast Bureau, you know how they say the show must go on? Well, now on Broadway, most shows will go on without a mask requirement. Starting today, most Broadway productions won't require those masks. They are still recommended, though. And the Broadway League says it will consider bringing the mandate back on a monthly basis. Well, Florida's 15-week abortion ban, a new state law, was slated to go into effect today. But just yesterday, a state judge temporarily blocked it, saying it violates privacy protections in the state constitution. And that's not the only legal challenge to the law. Congregation L'Ador Vador, a synagogue in Florida, is suing the state, saying the ban impinges upon religious liberty. The rabbi of that synagogue and many other Jewish people believe the Florida ban and the reversal of Roe v. Wade compromise their religious freedom. NBC's Isa Gutierrez has more.
I got pregnant unintentionally when I was in my second year of rabbinical school. The very, very first thing I did when I saw the little plus sign on my pregnancy test is that I said a blessing, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher yatzar et ha'adam b'chokhmah, blessing our God who created the human body with wisdom.
Rabbi Rachel Pass was in her mid-20s and unmarried when she found out she was pregnant and faced a choice.
I decided, I wasn't financially stable. There would be no way to do raising a child and do rabbinical school. I terminated my pregnancy.
Rabbi Pass says her right to choose an abortion is in line with Jewish law.
It is religiously required that we have access to abortion when we need it.
That's why one progressive synagogue in Florida says it's suing the state over its 15-week abortion ban. The law, signed by Governor Ron DeSantis in April, bans most abortions in Florida after 15 weeks of pregnancy.
If the emotional well-being is going to be harmed, Jewish law says she's entitled and required to an abortion.
In a statement to NBC News Now, Governor DeSantis said in part the law, quote, will ultimately withstand all legal challenges. The ban, supposed to go into effect today, was temporarily blocked by a state judge, saying it violates the state constitution's privacy protections.
It will be a statewide temporary injunction.
In a press conference Thursday, Governor DeSantis vowed to appeal the judge's ruling.
It was not, of course, something that we were happy to see.
The lawsuit filed by Rabbi Silver's synagogue makes the privacy protection argument and says the ban infringes on religious liberty.
There's absolutely no question at all that Florida's 15-week ban violates the Florida Constitution. What they would make of the religious claims, that I really don't know.
Rabbi Silver started an initiative called HEART, which stands for Helping Emancipate Abortion Rights Today. Its goal to help restore abortion rights in a post-Roe America.
If you live in any state in the country and you want to make the same challenge, use my blueprint.
75% of Jews in the U.S. said they were concerned the Supreme Court would toss out Roe, according to the 2022 National Survey of Jewish Voters, which was commissioned by a group chaired by former House Democrat Martin Frost.
It's like a 1-2 punch to the gut, and it is trying to impose a narrow-minded view of Christianity on everyone else.
Not all Jewish people agree on the issue of abortion. The Orthodox Union, a national organization representing the Orthodox branch of Judaism, said in a statement that it was, quote, unable to either mourn or celebrate the U.S. Supreme Court's overturning of Roe v. Wade. But Rabbi Pass says that as a Reform and self-described liberal Jew, she hopes to see change.
I do think that using this religious freedom argument can be a path forward to making abortion more accessible to everyone in this country.
And Isa joins us now. Isa, this Florida abortion ban law is temporarily blocked now. So what does this mean for the future of the 15-week ban?
Yeah, Aaron, this block is simply not expected to last very long, right? I mean, we heard DeSantis yesterday saying that the state will be appealing the judge's ruling. We even heard the judge himself saying that it's unlikely that the appellate court is going to keep his temporary pause in place for very long. And by the way, Aaron, we also know that Republican leaders in Florida have alluded to proposing other abortion restrictions in the state beyond just that 15-week abortion ban. Aaron?
All right, Isa Gutierrez with us tonight. Isa, thank you. Still to come, some people online have reacted to the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade with a practice that some call protest and others call abuse. Steve Patterson has that next. Now we want to bring you today's original with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been keeping an eye on. Reaction to the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade has reflected the political divide in this country right now. For conservatives, enthusiasm for a decision that reflects deeply held beliefs. For liberals, a lot of anger and a lot of action in response to those losing those rights. All of this expressed at nearly a week of massive rallies all over the country. And in this digital age, Gen Z is protesting in its own way on social media. Doxing, or posting private information for an online audience, has become a popular recipe for revenge. And some of the most popular targets right now are all on the highest court in the land. Our Steve Patterson takes a look at the trend.
For generations, this was the sole unmistakable sound of action through outrage.
My body, my choice!
Thousands protesting the Supreme Court's bombshell decision to abolish Roe v. Wade. Last week, 5 justices supported the judgment, overturning the constitutional right to abortion access, upending 50 years of federal reproductive protections. But to many members of Gen Z, the new curators of our country's youth culture, this is really only half the battle.
Y'all, apparently the credit card information got leaked of all of the Supreme Court justices, and Kavanaugh got his house vandalized.
This video, like many others, racking up millions of views, reacting to the so-called doxing of those 5 Supreme Court justices.
Our generation's just fighting. We're fighting back. We're not sitting here and taking it.
Doxing is when someone finds another individual's personal or private information and goes public with it, often on platforms like Instagram and TikTok.
Take me inside the mind of Gen Z.
The feeling of frustration, of anger, of feeling like there's not much that they can do to change what has happened in terms of the decision with Roe. This puts the power in a tiny way back in their own hands, whether, you believe it's ethical or not. In a small way, they feel like they have a little bit of control.
NBC News found several videos like this one on TikTok, alleging to reveal home addresses, IP addresses, and credit card information before they were removed by the platform. TikTok telling NBC News, "We strictly prohibit and will remove content that shares personally identifiable information."
I just think it's ridiculous that they're able to overturn our rights like that. And I think that doxing will hopefully help spread more light onto this issue.
But what some see as a protest can quickly turn into an abusive practice of harassment. Earlier this month, federal officials say conservative Supreme Court appointee Brett Kavanaugh was threatened outside of his home by a man who was armed and intended to kill the justice.
It can be dangerous, and in some cases, it's been deadly.
Digital rights experts say doxing treads a fine legal line depending on the activity.
It has to be, when it's released with the intent and knowledge that it'd be used to threaten, intimidate, or facilitate the commission of a crime, then regardless of whether it was public information or not, it becomes a federal crime.
For now, as more reaction videos surface, there's no sign that the doxing trend will end anytime soon. Ethical or not, the practice cemented as a call to action for the digital age.
And Steve Patterson joins us now. Steve, I wonder, is there a thought that this has the potential to lead to Gen Zers making a stronger move toward the ballot box?
Yeah, you know, Aaron, we reached out. We got some great intel from our NBC politics colleagues showing that between Gen Z and young millennials, by far, no other group that was polled feels more strongly that abortions should be legal. Our intern, Alexis, she's standing right there, spent a lot of time interviewing members of her own generation for the story. She says it was kind of a mixed bag, with some believing all the doxing is raising awareness that will lead to political action, while others say they feel there's even more ambivalence following this decision, and that simply won't be cured by the latest viral trend. Aaron?
It's going to be interesting to watch to see how this that generation, Gen Z, really impacts in one way or another. Steve Patterson for us out in L.A. today. Steve, thank you. And that is a wrap for this hour. We will have more for you here on Monday, same time, same place. Coverage picks up right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.